The global cybercrime industry, they say that the most often cited figure is $1 trillion actually, and President Obama has cited that one, and a lot of people in the United Nations and they have cited that figure $1 trillion. And I was looking at individual countries, for example, in the UK did a study a couple of months back, like how much people are losing in the UK on cybercrime, and they did a study in New Zealand and did a study in many different countries, and I basically compare with what percentage of GDP is cybercrime, and 1 trillion makes a sense actually looking at all this individual country data, and this looks like a really a big industry, $1 trillion industry. And yeah, looking at some of the like cybercrime groups and operating in the US, from US and UK, they operate in multi-country, hundreds of people, very organized way, from the Eastern Europe or from China or to some extent from other countries like Vietnam. And in one operation, for example, in September, October, the FBI had 100 people arrested in the US and many of them in the UK, and they made hundreds of millions of dollars only from that one operation. And also taking into account how much intellectual property those organizations lose and all those things, and $1 trillion really makes sense actually. I mean, global cybercrime industry might be that big. Looking at the gold mine cloud as a potential gold mine for cyber criminals, and they have done a lot of studies in this criminology, that area, or in sociology, and all these criminals basically target those potential targets basically are high value target. High value could be monetary value, or in some cases like could be symbolic value example would be those September 11, the terrorists targeted the World Trade Center, which has a big symbolic value, and they were not interested about the monetary value. So basically whatever high value, either monetary or symbolic value, they are very attractive target for cyber criminals. And going to the cloud computing industry, all these cloud providers like the Gmail, Google, or Microsoft, or like Salesforce.com, and all these companies definitely are much bigger than their clients. Actually, the clients in many cases could be small and medium-sized enterprises, and all these are bigger, and these definitely are potential gold mine for cyber criminals, because if they can access to the cloud, and they will have access to almost unlimited data about all the companies that they want to get access to. So this is a kind of targeting big cloud data stored in the big cloud is a much more attractive option for those criminals than targeting those small and medium-sized companies or something. That is one issue that is very important in the cloud computing. Actually, people have done a lot of studies why people commit crime. Actually, Gary Baker won Nobel Prize from University of Chicago studying crime actually. So he has done a lot of study, and his argument is, for example, why teenagers commit more crime, because they do not have any economic opportunity, because they cannot make money actually working or something, a lot of money. So just like that actually, in the Eastern European countries, they are very good computer scientists actually. I mean, they don't have good economists or people working in business, not very good manager, because they didn't have to manage anything, they didn't have to market anything in the central planning time, and everything was planned by the government, and they didn't have to understand what people need and want and that type of thing. But they are very good in science and engineering and mathematics, and especially the countries like former Soviet Union countries like Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, or the Eastern Bloc that time, other Central and Eastern European countries like Romania. People are really good in mathematics and physics and computer science, but the IT industry is not big enough to absorb all the talents. Actually, they graduate a lot of people, thousands of people, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people, but IT industry is really small to absorb all those things. And so what the people do, and also in many cases, I read a lot of newspaper articles on those issues, and those organized crime group, we call them maybe mafia or those groups, basically a lot of them are involved in this crime, actual internet online crime these days. extortion from these online casinos in the Caribbean or other types of extortions all over the world, and they are engaged in that because in this cybercrime, not really any big visible danger that they face, but the opportunity is really high. They can make a lot of money. So this organized crime criminal group, like this mafia group, are basically shifting to this internet crime, and also they pay 10 times as much as the legitimate company. Actually, in some cases, if there is any top IT experts or graduate, and that IT expert can get 10 times more money working for this organized crime group compared to working for the legitimate. So cybercrime compared to other types of crimes like murder or drugs and those type of crimes, basically those type of crimes basically harm people in their own country. Actually, if there is murder, those they really have negative social impact, and the government is under pressure to control that. But the cybercrime, basically, as long as they are not hurting people in Russia or Chinese, those cyber criminals are not hurting those people in China, the government really should not care, because government public policy is that, okay, public policy should be that how much money they should invest in law enforcement. So as long as those criminals are not harming their own people, there is, okay, they want to probably control, but there is not much incentive to spend a lot of money finding out where these criminals are and putting them in jail. And so the governments do have very less an incentive to do that, and that is one of the reasons why a lot of crimes originate from those countries. Okay, a lot of these experts basically argue that, okay, they have very advanced and sophisticated cloud computing technology. Technology-wise, they are very good, but the major problem looks like in terms of the practices they follow, security practices they follow. And many people, these experts in this area, say that they have basically very nascent type of security practices, and so security practices are far behind compared to the sophisticated technologies that they are applying in cloud computing. And recent research that I read today was basically saying that many of these companies spend less than 10% of their revenue in providing any type of security to the client data. So they are spending much less in security than they should actually be doing. So they are much less prepared or much less sophisticated security practices than the technologies that they are using in the cloud right now. Oh, okay, in terms of security and privacy issues, and European Union countries are much ahead of the US actually, and they have very strong law against those companies in European Union basically cannot take data outside the European Union countries if they are sensitive data, for example, related to healthcare or people's financial things. And so those are very strict countries, and have very strong laws for data protection, and the US doesn't have currently.
The U.S. doesn't have those.
U.S. doesn't have as strong as the European Union, definitely stronger than China or Russia or India or those countries, but U.S. is kind of middle between the European Union countries and other developing countries in terms of these measures. Right now, there is really not any regulative or laws which tells about if, for example, a US-based cloud provider has a client which is based in the UK and the data is stored in Iceland, and which country's law actually governs if there is any dispute going on between those parties involved in the cloud computing. And also, these basically a lot of these cloud vendors, they want to save money, and they might be storing data in the cheaper locations like in India or in China or in Africa without considering those regulative measures. And okay, regulative institutions enacting new laws, that is one thing, and a major problem, especially if the data is stored in developing countries, is the enforcement mechanisms, because they don't really have any manpower to enforce any type of laws. Even if laws exist, and it is almost impossible to enforce law in those countries, many developing countries. So that is one of the things, and they call this arbitrage. Arbitrage means could be economic arbitrage, could be institutional arbitrage, or any type of arbitrage, cultural arbitrage. So all these companies, even the criminals, take advantage of the arbitrage, means they store data in a cheaper place, that is kind of economic arbitrage, or they store data in in for example, in a country which doesn't really have a strong laws or which doesn't have a lot of enforcement mechanisms, and criminals might also operate from those mainly countries which do not really have any law to protect people, or any law related to cybercrime or cloud, or the government are not really willing to enforce the laws, or the governments are not really cooperating with the US or the Western countries. Like examples could be Russia or China, or many governments basically do not cooperate if there is any kind of cybercrime taking place in the US. Many analysts argue that the power right now is balanced towards these cloud vendors, and if there is any data breach, and the court may not really make responsible these cloud vendors for the data breach or something, and probably over time, and they might take the middle ground, or also they might make these vendors responsible for any type of data breach. But right now, many analysts say that so they are even if there is any type of data breach, those vendors will not have a big liability and that type of thing. So that is another concern that many users have. And they've done a lot of survey, like IDC does regularly, and Harris Interactive did, and a lot of these companies, the reason why they do not adopt cloud is that they are not comfortable about the security on the cloud. So these are some of the issues that the users are having right now. And also that if there is any problem, that those and like if there is any type of cyber crime or data breach takes place on all these providers, and they do not really report to the law enforcement agencies, or they do not report to these clients, because if they report, then there might be stock price drop, or there might be potential lawsuit, or there might be their reputation loss, or there might be problem of loyalty, and so they don't really report. They are very, very less likely to report, and less than 10% of cyber crimes are ever reported to law enforcement agencies. They've done a lot of research, and that's what it indicates. And another problem is that if there is any problem, then data breach problem, then the vendors may not report to the client that okay, data breach took place, and or even if they report, and it might take a very, very long time to do that. I think the Sony's case could be this one: data breach going on for a long time, and but they didn't report the clients, the customers, Sony customers, for a long time. That is the type of problem that these vendors are having for. Clients should probably precaution would be better. Probably clients maybe should ask these very tough questions to these providers, like okay, where exactly they are storing their data, or like if they do background check of their employees, and if in case of data breach, what mechanisms there will be, and like what the vendors are likely to do. This type of very top questions that clients should ask those vendors before they make any decision about which vendors cloud applications to adopt. And from the cloud vendors perspective, it is very, very important to be honest. Actually, if in case of any breach, and if they do not report the problems, ongoing problems for quite some time, and if they think that okay, they should solve all their problems without reporting to the clients, and they might be in a big problem actually in the future. So the sooner they tell their clients or the law enforcement agencies that this is the thing happening in our cloud system, the better probably. The earlier the better probably for them.